like you can't not interrupt, but just hop in. Okay, so we're going to talk today about talking to the realtors. They have a language, right? Like they have different things that they say that we're like, what? What was that? What are all these letters? What are you talking about? So I think for people that are fairly new in the business, some of it for people who've been around for a while, it may feel a little rudimentary. So bear with me and add in information if you'd like to. Let me just, okay. So I do want to say a little bit about where I'm coming from. Debbie did such a nice introduction. Thank you so much. I am so grateful to have connected with Robin Webster many, many years ago for a meet and greet and chat with her. And we just got, inspired to start a group. And I'm so grateful for that, Robin. It's really great to see a great group all together here. Like it was,
we all pulled together, everybody.
Right? Yeah.
Group. Absolutely.
We had our 3 members to start with Pam.
Right.
So it was wonderful. So yeah, we've come a long way. One of the things that I wanted to point out in my introduction here is that after COVID hit, because I was teaching classes and I was able to take this course online, I had one of the local boards reach out to me to try to help them create a protocol for how to do an online class. And that was fascinating. I got together with other vendors that teach classes. And those are just amazing ways that you can get involved in your board, in you're working with other vendors. Like there's just a million ways that we can get connected in the industry. But that was something that if I hadn't known them and hadn't done my classes, I wouldn't have been a part of that. And I really appreciated being, respected enough to come in and figure out how are we going to do this, because it was so new to all of us. It was like, what kind of protocols do we need to set in place to have this be like we're in a physical classroom? So that was super interesting. I have gotten the Instructor of the Year twice, which I think is crazy. Thank you, Bonnie. And funny enough, I think Bonnie is one of the ones here that was able to come to one of my classes when I had it over. It was like in the Peterborough area, and it was where she works. And so it was really great when she came to that class because she got to see what was being said, what we were training and teaching the realtors. But she also got to network with the people that would need her, right? Like I'm not going to travel 2 hours to get over to Peterborough to do the work. So it was just really great for her to come and get that bird's eye view. So in that vein, I'm trying to share with all of you like the key things that class teaches the realtors so that you all can be on board with the messaging that we're putting out. There are 3 of us in the group that teach the class. Debbie and Pam and I are teaching this 3-hour class. If it's something that you're interested in doing, reach out to any of us. We're happy to give you feedback on what it's like, the things you need to do. There's like a little bit of a training involved, but it's been super great to be able to continue education because that's what this is all about. All right, let's get rolling here. So today we're going to talk about what is the lingo that real estate agents are using so that it makes sense to us. And we can speak to them about what's happening and how we can help them by using their language, right? That's a big thing. Where to connect with them. Sometimes if you're brand new, it's like, what do I do? How do I start this process? Looking at staging as a marketing tool versus prettying up a house. So in units 3, 4, and 5, this is going to be all information that you can use to educate realtors, whether you're doing a program, whether you're, maybe sitting down with a group of realtors and you just want to have some talking points. All of these will be great for that. Who are you and what are you offering, right? So we have such a wide variety of experience within this group people who are new to people who've been in the business 15 years, right? So that's a huge gap in between, but you can show your value to real estate agents from the moment you open your business forward. So we can talk about how to do that so that you're not feeling like, how do I compete? Like we'll hopefully give you some nuggets to use today in introducing yourself and what you bring to the table. Also, the last part of this, in terms of home staging overall, what's in it for the buyer, what's in it for the seller, and most importantly, what's in it for the realtor, because that's what matters to them. They want to know what's in it for them, always. It's like, this is just how it works for them. They want to know if they're spending money and they're investing in this, what is it going to bring them? So we'll talk about all of that. I've got a top 5 that we'll go through so we can see for sure what is their pain points and what gets them excited. So how can we answer some of those pains? All right. Oh, I went too fast. Okay. So the 2 major goals of someone selling a house are always going to be that they want to sell quickly and for more money, right? And we say, oh, we help people do that all the time. But it's just a phrase that comes off the tongue. You're like, yeah, I help people sell faster and for more money. Well, that's great. And it's awesome that we can meet that goal that the sellers always have. But what this is going to be about is telling people how. How do we do that? We don't just come in and pretty things to make value. We do a lot of other things too. So we'll talk about all of that today. Here's where we're going to start. I'm going to go through these lingo items that, thank you, Pam, for helping me to pull some of these together. But if you have others that you've heard from realtors as you're working with them, if you've been in offices, even after the class, people come and talk to us about stuff, please hop in at the end of this slide and share with the group if there are other things that pop up a lot that you think that they would want to know. So on the selling side of real estate, there's always going to be the agent that's going to be the listing or selling agent is the one that we want to connect with, right? They're the ones that are trying to get all the listings and put forth the properties to sell them. In their process, they create a CMA, which is a comparable market analysis. So what that is they're basically pulling together the information on houses in the area that compare to your home that have sold in the recent months. And I'm not sure, I'm assuming that some of these things are going to be different by state. So I'm speaking to what I know about New Hampshire. So if like Lori, if you have other information from Massachusetts, please hop in on that. Typically, those agents are going to go in and have a listing presentation that they sit down with a potential client, their seller, to tell them, hey, this is how great I am. This is how fast I'm going to sell your house, and this is how I'm going to do it. And what's important about the listing presentation is that we can be part of that by the agent saying they're going to use staging as part of their presentation. As part of their marketing program, they use staging. So when we're talking to people about, what can we do? You can say, oh, I could give you a flyer that you could use at your listing presentation if you want. Like we're thinking about how can we help them to market themselves and open the door for the conversation about staging so that we're not having a battle and an uphill. Nobody wants to talk about staging. I'm going to say this. When I go into the classes, the first thing I ask them is, why would you not want to offer staging? And the biggest reason is that they don't want to offend the client. They don't want to offend the homeowner. And so how do we get past that? We can provide them the information that says, hey, this is all the reasons why you want to do it. And we'll cover all the rest of that throughout. So even the information you'll get today, if you created a flyer for that and shared it with agents, would be fantastic, right? Listing agreement is basically that you say, I'm going to work with this particular agent. They're going to represent me through the entire process. And in the buying side, it's good to know, there's a buyer's agent. They sometimes will be both, but a buyer's agent will ask a buyer typically to sign a broker agreement, which says we're going to work together for a certain period of time so that they don't run off and work with another real estate agent. And then, the initial agent doesn't get the commission. So there's a lot of that trying to keep it together. In that process, obviously, people make offers and there are contracts. In both, and this is probably the most important and the information that's going to matter to all of us. Looking at the MLS, which is multiple listing service, that's like a phrase used countrywide. The NEREN, N-E-R-E-N, is the New England Real Estate Network. That's a network that the state of New Hampshire uses, but there are others in each state. So in Rhode Island, they have a different one. Massachusetts, it's different. It's set up by the Real Estate Commission. So you can do Google searching and figure out which MLS system is being used. And in some cases, you can get minimal access. For our NEREN system, you can get access. You just can't get all the back end information that a real estate agent would get. So that you can't go into the back end of a listing and look at it, but you can search for realtors on there, and we'll look at that in a few minutes. But it's just a nice resource to have. So if you meet a realtor at a networking event and you want to check them out and see what they're doing for business, you can look them up and it'll show you what do they have for current listings, what is their past listings, so you can tell how busy they are. And if you really want to push to try to get their business, well, just another way to look at that. When we talk about off-market, private sale, and FSBO is for sale by owner. Typically, this is when sellers don't want to have to pay commissions. They think they can do it on their own. Off market, you may sometimes see, like when we try to find our statistics, when we go into like Redfin, Estately, you might see that a property is off market. It means they went on the market and then they came off for whatever reason. Sometimes people just get cold feet. Sometimes they realize they need to do some major projects. So when you see off market, that's part of the meaning. But the private sale and off market can also just mean that a sale happened. You stick a sign out at the end of your driveway and you sell your house by yourself. There's a whole lot of pros and cons to that I'm not going to get into because that's a whole other thing. But just so that you know what those mean. Negotiation is always going to be between the buyer's agent, selling agent, representing the buyer and the seller. So there's lots of negotiation sometimes when it comes to, people don't want to pay full price because there's an issue, right? If they have a home inspection and there's a problem, they're going to negotiate. How does that work? So when we talk about negotiation with our clients as sellers, when we go in as a stager, we can say things like, I think you should repair that because you don't want that to become an issue of a negotiation, or you don't want someone to offer you less because they see a project that they have to work on, right? These are ways that we can prompt the seller and tell your real estate agents, this is how we help you. We're telling the selling client, do this so that there aren't any concessions that you have to make. If you're saying you want top dollar for your listing, for your home, then this is how we get it, right? The agent can speak to that at the beginning when they introduce themselves, but then we can really hammer the message home. And when they know they've got a support system in us that way, it really helps. And we can prove ourselves over and over and over. And that's why when you do get connected to realtors that you forge your relationship with, it will be a very long-term relationship because they understand your value always. it's really great. So pending, sold subject to contingencies, and under contract. They basically all mean that the house is under contract, but they show differently in those systems. Like when we're checking our stats on Estately, Redfin, all of that. What we care about with our statistics is going to be what was the date that the house was listed, which is always, you just scroll down underneath the listing itself, and it'll say listed date and then date sold, subject to contingencies. That gap of time is all we care about. How quickly did they get that offer after everybody did our staging recommendations, right? There are going to be times that people don't do anything we recommend. They go out the window for my stats. They don't matter because the homeowner didn't do what we recommended. It's whether or not they did the work. And if they did, we're going to take that number. There are going to be times that things fall through, the house goes back on the market, it's going to go back under contract again. None of that matters to us. It's that initial, like it went out on the market and then our contingency date. So just keep those in mind. I'm going to throw it out there. Any other verbiage and lingo that you guys can think of that you've talked to the realtors about or that come to mind?
I have one thing to input. When I have a house staged and it goes under agreement and the realtor calls me and says you can destage the home, I always ask if there are contingencies that have not been met, because it's ideal to wait until all those commitments are fulfilled before you destage the house. Because if it's financing, home inspections, appraisals, that kind of thing. So it's ideal to wait until all those contingencies are met before you destage.
That is a fantastic thought, Robin. And that's something to say to the realtors when you're talking to them. This is our process and why, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go
Right.
ahead,
It's
Lori.
good for us to understand the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is that at least around here, or the agents I work with, they want to keep the home staged until after the bank has gone through to do their appraisal.
Mm-hmm.
Because the home looks that much better than not.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I have spoken to local appraisers that say that they appraise the homes higher when they're staged.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And so that's another key point to make to realtors. When they're balking about not wanting to, have the homeowner bring furniture in, there's a huge reason to bring it in, right? Like we know all the other reasons why it matters, but man, if the appraisal comes in where they need it to be, okay, that's all part of this. Make their lives easier. And you're talking about it with the seller, and they're not having to battle with that. I also think that part of working as a team with a realtor is that the homeowners tend to be more motivated when they hear the information from two professionals. The real estate agent has already said what they are going to, but we come in and not only back them up, but give the homeowner the game plan, right? So it just makes all the difference in the world for the homeowners. And I've had people that were like, I'm not doing anything. Like, okay, but I'm educating you to tell you why. I'm not going to tell you to do something without giving you a rationale. If you don't like the rationale, that's okay. But you said to all of us in the process, you want top dollar for your listing. So you have to put out a top dollar listing to get that. So it's an interesting dynamic with people because they just, they'll talk out both sides of their mouths. we've all experienced that before too, I'm sure. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide here. Any other thoughts? Actually, I don't want to jump too far if anybody had any other thoughts. Okay. All right, so where are we going to connect with realtors? Obviously, local boards of real estate are a great place to be. And it took a while, when you first start a business, they're like, oh, you have to be everywhere. You have to be in every group. You have to network. So I was laughing at that, Tamitha, because it's all about the networking, right? But when we talk about where are we going to get the biggest bang for our buck, because everything costs money, everything's going to, we're going to have to pay to get into everything, right? So we invest in this group. We invest at the national level, we invest at the local level because we want to stay engaged and understanding what's happening in our industry. The next step would be, these boards of real estate. That's where you're going to see your people. And they're oftentimes looking for people to do lunch and learns. You'll learn like when they have events and stuff where you can volunteer to help out. You can do the sign-in table and get to meet people. That's all really great. There is an annual meeting usually from the state boards of real estate, the commissions. They haven't had one in New Hampshire because of COVID for a while, but the last one we as a group for RISA had a table. It was awesome. And anyone who could make it that day got to come and hang out with all the realtors and answer their questions. So I hope that we can do that again. I hope that they get to a place where we're all back together again. We'll see. Women's Council of Realtors is also another really great resource. They tend to be really open to having you come and speak. They get it. There's just something about, it's just a different dynamic. And I'm sure it's just group by group. So it's good to go and visit a couple. If you're in an area where you could be connected to two different boards of real estate, go and visit a couple of them and see what you think. Because some of them have a personality that are like, well, I've been to pretty much all of them around the state to teach the class, and it's a very different board for people who are in Salem than the people who work in Pittsburgh and Littleton, New Hampshire, right? It is like I'm in a different country. It was really interesting because I had to change how the class was being taught in a way because of the socioeconomic stuff. It's just a different place. So it's understanding your market and being able to speak to people within it. Chamber of Commerce is a good one. Local offices are always great. They're always looking for people to come in. You could even connect with teams of people like a Keller Williams office. They're so progressive and they're so on top of it. They're a great resource to go in and even sit down with smaller groups if you wanted, or do a Zoom like this until we're all back to a place where people can get together. A lot of those groups and offices do charity events, which they're just wonderful. Just like we want to do charity events as a group, they do. And Keller Williams does have it's based on a day of caring that you would see through United Way. They do one day, they choose a facility, and then they have their agents and vendors they invite in to help. And that's a nice way to be able to chat with people and have it not be this super formal, uncomfortable networking event, if you will. I mean, I was asking people about, so what do you feel like when a client says this to you as we're digging holes to plant flowers? It can be really loose and not so stressful because we all walk into that stuff like, oh, it's like, I don't know about you guys, but it's not something that gets me wound up and excited. But those ways of doing it's kind of a softer approach. Mm-hmm. Any kind of sports connection or a local gym. Sometimes if you meet agents, they may say, oh yeah, I'm a runner. So maybe you connect with them in you're meeting up for a race. You practice, like you get ready for the race together. Like there are ways that you can kind of, think outside of the box and not necessarily have it be through these formal avenues. The last one that I wanted to note was the real estate tours. So I have to give a shout out to Pam because back in the day, after the real estate market had tanked and things were picking up speed, she reached out to me and said, hey, they're doing some real estate tours in the area. Do you want to hop on as a vendor in the northern areas? Because she didn't want to travel as far as, the Tri-City area, Rochester, Milton, like that wasn't her area, it was mine. So thank you for that, Pam. That was a huge opportunity. And if you get a chance, like sometimes they call it a caravan in different offices. If you can get on one of those, it is fantastic opportunity because you hop in a car with 4 or 5 realtors and you have a whole morning to pick their brains. You can chat with them about their listing that you walk through. You can offer them suggestions about how they could, suggest their client stage it. I would fill out a form and everything and give it to the agents at the end for every house that we went into. And you almost get to do a little interview. You can figure out, who do I want to work with in this group and who do I want to steer clear of? You learn a lot about people in a 4-hour span. Just in the things that they'd say in a car that I've been flabbergasted at some of the conversations. Very inappropriate, very unprofessional. I'm thinking, you do realize, like, we may work together. I found it fascinating. So I think it's good. I think at the beginning, I was so nervous and I wanted everyone to hire me. I wanted everyone to like me and hire me. But what I came to realize was those times were the time for me to be the choosy one and figure out, who are these people and who do I connect with? Because the ones that you do, then you can continue a conversation with. You can connect to them online and be like, hey, what's new? What's going on? Let's have coffee. And then you're building your relationship with them over time. This is another spot where I wanted to throw it out to all of you. Are there other places that you found that you've been able to connect with realtors that was really helpful?
Yeah, Amy, I'll jump in here. The number one place that literally started my business and kept it going was on Sundays going to bootstrapping and going to open houses. I had the realtors one-on-one, and I would bring, I had a little label made up that said Realtor Survival Kit, and I'd put things in it, like I'd do a little higher end drink like a Perrier, and then a small thing of Kleenex, because sometimes they're there with no toilet paper, and then like a Cliff Bar. And as a matter of fact, tomorrow I'm doing a $1.2 million house from somebody that I met 7 years ago that's still a client today.
That's fantastic. That's an excellent suggestion. Yes.
Yeah, do like 3 open houses on every Sunday. Pass your little bag around with your card. If somebody's there, just sneak in and put it down. If no one's there, take a couple minutes and talk to them.
That's wonderful. And I do appreciate that. Like, it's good to go in and talk to them, but you don't want to consume them if they do have a potential buyer come through, right? Like, that's part of that, knowing our place in it. So yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. That's excellent. Anybody else?
Amy, I wanted to add to your caravan comment. When I was brand new in business, that's what I did every week. Mm-hmm. I did caravan, and I would visit all the listings in my local area. And it was very much a soft sell, just to get to know people. And when they like you, they want to work with you. So a big part of that is just ice breaking. And I don't think they do it anymore, at least during COVID. But yeah, the open houses is definitely another great way to do it. But yeah, get out there and meet those realtors, and it's more of a relaxed setting.
Yeah, they've just started doing them again. I just noticed recently, Amy, the original group that we used to caravan with is going. And beyond that, I also wanted to mention that just the volunteerism. Just a little scenario, I once volunteered at the Realtor Day of Caring. I think I was washing windows at Odiorn State Park, and connected with Shannon Folia of Cohen Closing. And now she sponsors those classes of mine twice a year. So that was an excellent connection. And even though she's not a realtor, she was the conduit to me connecting with tens of them, hundreds of them. So it's, networking is great, even if it's not with realtors, because you're meeting other industry partners and they want to partner with you to do a presentation or do a seller seminar or whatnot. So those boards of realtors, sorry for the dinging. I can't make it stop. I'm going to mute myself now. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Pam. Anybody else? Okay, so I'm going to keep going on. Throughout the time I've been in business, it's always been this, oh, who's your ideal client? You need to figure out your client avatar. You need to this, you need to that. It gets really confusing with all the different things you've got to think about, right? So I tried to break this down to make things a little easier. Like, who are the people that we want to connect to in terms of the real estate agents? Let me just switch my notes here too. Sometimes people want to know, like, hey, I only want to work with people in the luxury market, or I love that neighborhood. It's right around the corner for me, and I want to work with the agents in there. So that's where you can go into that near-in program and find out who's in there, who's doing that. If your MLS system doesn't allow for that, I would say check oh my goodness, like Estately and those websites to search for the real estate agent and see if you can come up with their stuff. Oftentimes they have their own website too, and they'll have their listings there as well. So there's different ways that you can research that information. But you know, you want to find people who are busy. And are they online? If we're talking to real estate agents and then we go to connect with them on Facebook after the meeting or after the tour that we were on with them, and we can't find anything about them, like, they're probably not our ideal client, right? Like, they're not even online. They have no value set around a photo and what they're bringing to the table and being progressive and being online, which is where real estate is being bought and sold. It's online. So if they're not online, they're probably not someone that you want to spend, you know, a whole lot of time and energy trying to woo. When even if you woo them, what's going to happen then? They're not going to be able to promote the way that we're helping a homeowner to promote their home, right? We're saying we're all part of the marketing team now, and we have to have everything look great so it'll look good online. So if we're talking to agents that are like, yeah, I take a few pictures with my cell phone, these are probably things and red flags that say, yeah, that's probably not my person. But if they're busy and we see them online and they're doing really cool things, get involved, chat with them online. I think it's great. This whole networking online has been really great for all of this pandemic stuff, because I was still able to set up like one-on-one meetings via Zoom, and we can still do that stuff. It's not the same as sitting down for coffee. We know that, but we can still have a conversation and talk to people, which is great. One of the other things that you want to listen for when you're talking to an agent is, are they team focused? Keller Williams is really big on this. They recommend that people create teams. That really helps the groups to add and grow their team and have more people involved in the process. When people are getting into these teams, the philosophy comes down to, you know, adding in all of the progressive options. So photography, staging, all of the things, sometimes pre-inspection for people, pre-appraisals when they're trying to get people to the right price point, all of these kinds of things that they're using in their toolbox, if you will. That's the kind of agent we want to work with, because they are looking ahead. They're trying to figure out, how can we be more proactive as a seller, so that we're not getting, you know, pulled through a knothole by the buyer, right? We can hit things up front so that we're not having to deal with problems down the line. Another thing to think about and to listen to or listen for is people who say they want to up level their business. So they want to increase their business by some percentage, whether it's, you know, they want to increase their income by a certain amount. They want 50 more listings this year than last year. People who are thinking about their numbers and know where they are in their business, they're the ones we want to talk to, because we can say, this is awesome, we can help you get there, and this is how, which is really good. Some of the other people that it's kind of obvious, but I want to throw it in here, is investors. So of any kind, the builders, you can join building association if you really want to focus in that vein, investors, flippers, and short-term rentals, which is everything these days, right? Like everybody who wanted to get away during COVID would go to a local Airbnb. Like it was the where you could get away without traveling by plane. But yeah, so it's growing by leaps and bounds, this industry. Okay. Any other thoughts that people want to add here on ideal clients? Okay. The one last note I want to make on this is
say model units, like a huge part that's just keeps growing for me is senior living model units, because it's a much younger crowd and they're getting out of the borders and the wallpapers and they want a young, fresh look.
Yeah.
So yeah, that does increase my revenue by 20%.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's a great avenue. Perfect. Thank you for adding that. Okay, so above all, the last thing that I just want to make a note of in terms of finding your ideal clients is it's okay to not work with people. I do want to throw that out there. If you have a certain value system and you're working with an agent who's like crossing lines and just making you uncomfortable, you can walk away from it. And it takes a lot to do that, because when you first start a business, you're trying to like get business from everyone. But you don't have to. Trust your gut. If it's not feeling right, it's probably not a good fit. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it can make it easier as you're interviewing agents. You get a sense for who they are as people, and they'll either get you jazzed up or they're going to turn you off. And that's a good way to make a difference too. Okay, so the rest of the program, before I flip on to the next slide, is going to be information that you can use to educate either in classes, in one-to-one meetings with the realtors, etc. And this is a lot of the stuff that we cover in the staging to sell class. So using staging as a marketing tool. Number one, sellers' goals are always going to be to sell quickly and for more money. We know this, right? Houses are going to be bought and sold and rented, Airbnbs, in the virtual world. And in the last 2 years with COVID, it was literally happening sight unseen. People didn't even go to the property. They bought these houses without even stepping foot in them. So the photos mattered even more than ever before. And now that we've got this, we've proven that it can be done that way, it's even more important that the pictures are great. And that's a great thing to mention to the agents who may be pushing against doing professional photography. Like, you do realize this is all happening online. Buyers of all ages, want a move-in or a turnkey home. And I'm going to explain why. Everybody wants the same thing, but they come at it from different angles. So it's good to understand that, because you can share it with your client. You can also share it with the agent. And I think that's an important factor in it. And then lastly, the staging and photography being the key elements to strong, impactful online listings. So the first thing I'll ask people in my classes is, how many of your selling clients tell you that they want top dollar for their listing, right? Everybody laughs or they groan. They're like, yeah. No one ever says that they want you to do a mediocre job for them so they can get a fraction of the value of their home. Right? Like they all say, I want top dollar. Well, that's wonderful. And I say, no problem to that. That's fantastic. But here's how we have to do it. Because if you have deferred maintenance of 10 to 15, 20 years on a home, there's no way that you can ask top dollar for it. These are things that a stager can talk to your clients about. We take the heat off you. You don't have to talk about it. You can introduce that these are things that would make sense, and it can keep your equity and or increase your equity if you do certain things in a home. Who doesn't want to increase their equity before they put the house on the market? These are the things that make sense to the realtors, and they want us to share this. We're going to have to put forth a move-in ready home in a way, and the way to do that is to complete all the staging recommendations, right? Sometimes people know that they have projects that need to be done, completing those, any repairs that they have to hire out, they get that taken care of, but then taking care of everything that we recommend. We cover all of this in a staging consultation. Anything that could become an issue at a home inspection. These are all great things to say to a realtor. This is where our value comes in, because we are covering every little bit in every room throughout a home, right through to the basement. There needs to be a clear path to the utilities so that the home inspector can get to them, right? I mean, these are the things that people don't think about. And how many times have realtors had to hire a junk removal company at the 19th hour on the way to closing because there's a garage full of crap? That's not good for them, because then everybody's stressed out and worked up. They're spending extra money that they didn't want to. The seller is. And is that seller going to be excited about referring you to all their friends and family? No. So we're there to say, we're going to do all that before you list the house. Why have that headache? And we address all of that. So there's one major part of our value going in to work with the clients. Houses being bought, sold, and rented in the virtual world. 95% of home buyers start their search online. That's critical. That's a huge number. It's not only what the realtors need to hear, I think most of them know that, but the homeowners, the older people who don't even have a cell phone, that don't use computers. You know, I've gone into places, they have no idea what's coming, what the process is. So it's a lot of education about why the photographs matter. When I started in the business in 2007, there were like 12 photographs in our local MLS, and there's up to 40 now, because everybody wants to see everything online, right down to what does the furnace look like. They're taking pictures of furnaces now. So they're showing everything. So we want to help people to get those photos that look great the whole time. The other piece of this is that the realtors want to show their value and get a lot of traction for their listings online, right? So the more traction they get online, people are excited to look at those photographs of their listing. They get to go back to the seller and say, we had 100 hits on your listing last night. I now have 3 appointments scheduled. These are ways that they can show their value, because people, if they don't sell immediately, which are, you know, the market will shift. Right now, that's not happening. But when it does, and people are like, it's been a week and you haven't sold my house yet. And, you know, they're like getting in their face about how it's not happening fast enough. They can say, listen, this is what's happening. We're using all of these tools. I can tell you that we did all the right things because of A, B, and C, which is good. And we've been all a part of that process to get them there. It's really, really important to let the sellers understand that drive-bys and first showings happen on a cell phone screen. Usually when people like this teeny tiny screen, it's when people are standing in the grocery store, completely distracted. They're looking at listings. How are you going to stand out among that? And when the market shifts and we have like crazy amounts of properties that people are going to have a chance to look at, it's going to be a whole other ball of wax. And that's important to help the real estate agents know that you get that. You get right now things are selling quickly, but we can still add value to every single listing that they hire us into. And these are the reasons and how we do that. Buyers are always going to fall in love with houses that they see on the photos. Once they fall in love with it, that's what they expect to see when they walk in the door. And that's all stuff that we make that happen by helping the seller understand, you know, we're going to elicit these emotional feelings in the buyers because the homeowner is going to be prepared for a showing every single time because we've prepped them. We've shown them how to stage to the photographs and then how to keep it that way, right? So all of these reasons are why it matters for us to go in and do this part of it. It's all like that background work, and it's not necessarily prettying it. Okay, buyers are heavily influenced by online photographs. People are going to create, you know, lists of properties, and this is a great question to ask the agents if they're working with buyers and sellers. Ask them, you know, do the buyers come to you with a whole list of, you know, houses they want to go look at because they've been on the computer all night long? Because they don't contact the agents, they figure out what they want, and then they go and say, this is where I want to go. This is all happening on the internet. Photos of staged properties get more traffic, like I was saying. And then, you know, in general, the way our society is today with Instagram, Pinterest, house.com, everybody wants everything to look gorgeous. Pinterest perfect pictures is the expectation. And when they're not there, they're like, meh, could be the perfect fit for them. That house could be just what they wanted. It hits every little bit on their list, and they just don't get there with it, which is unfortunate. So we don't want that to happen. One of the other things that I will say is that I don't want the seller's home to be the one that sells every other one in the neighborhood because it's not looking good online. So that's another way of phrasing it for people. Okay, so
Amy, can I share something real quick?
Yes, please do.
So I believe it was Realtor.com that gave the stats, but I was reading stats the other day and it said that 82% of people said that the photos online is their number one decision maker on touring a house.
Yep, absolutely.
Just so everybody knows, 82%.
Yeah, huge.
Pretty high.
Yeah, and that's a great thing to say to a seller and to their agent. If you've got the agent and the seller there, that kind of a statistic is huge to share, and that goes to our value. We're on the pulse of what's going on in the business, right? So how do we help them? And that's a fantastic suggestion. Yeah, I knew it was a pretty high number, so it's good to have a
Yeah
number to it, Ashley. That's awesome. Okay. Buyers of all ages want a move-in ready home. I'm going to talk a little bit about different buying groups, the buyers out there. And this is part of one of the biggest parts of the staging class that we share. This is a generational trends bit of information from NAR, is the National Association of Realtors. So that's another great place to get information and statistics. Just like what Ashley was talking about, they have their statistics as well. Our biggest pool of buyers today are millennials at 37%. These are the numbers from 2021. So they're the most recent, excuse me. They are first-time home buyers, and I'm going to get into more detail about them and what they look like because they're our biggest pool, so that you can share that information with sellers and agents. But so I'm going to jump into the Gen X group. It's all broken down by age group. So the Gen Xers are usually strapped for time because they're running their kids around and trying to get them to all their extracurricular activities, and they're spending money on all those extracurricular activities. It's really tough. They want to be able to move into a house and just start living because they're always on the run. So when we say, oh, you know, our target market in this house is probably going to be a larger family, then we can say, well, they're really crazy busy. So it's good for us to provide a move-in ready home so that they're not stressed out about the projects and things that might need to be done. baby boomers are going to be the next biggest group of buyers. They break it down in these reports to like a younger group of boomers and an older group of boomers. Usually the older group is retiring and downsizing. The younger group is, they still have kids at home, most likely, and they have gotten a bit strapped money-wise because they're helping their kids get through college. I mean, this college debt stuff is for real, and it becomes a big issue for people. It's the biggest issue for millennials because they're seeing college debt in the hundreds of thousands of dollars compared to us back in the day being able to get through for a lot less money. Like it, and when we think about that in the state of New Hampshire, we're like one of the highest rates of college fees, I would say. Our state school is one of the highest in the country to go to, which is crazy, Bill, but it's a reality for these kids who went through UNH. So when we think about that, it does matter to people. So there's a reason why they're strapped and they don't have fluid funds to go in and make a bunch of changes in a house. They just don't. So the days of people saying, oh, they can come in and make it their own, they don't want to. People don't want to do that anymore. They want to move into a house and start living. The last group that they talk about, they call them the silent generation, which I really dislike the words. I don't know. It's like a little weird to me, but anyway, these are for folks who are like 73 years and up. They are typically buying either a brand new house or one that's been completely renovated with all new furniture, not furniture, excuse me, fixtures, appliances, things like that, so that there wouldn't be an issue that they would have to find money to spend to update it. They'll sometimes move into assisted living as well, or into apartments with family, which is great. So they all want to move into a move-in ready home because they don't have the time and inclination or usually the funds to do a bunch of projects. They're usually on fixed income at that point after they've been retired for a period of time. So this is really important to think about when you go into a house. Sometimes it's good to talk to the realtor about, hey, who do you see as your target market here? And when they can talk about it, then you're able to give some of this information. Oh, well, for this, you know, we're talking about trying to appeal to a younger group. These are the things that I would do because of that. It really helps us have a better understanding of what the seller can do to really appeal to their market, if you will. I just wanted to make sure I was getting all my notes. Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is the millennial mindset. I got this information when we were at RisaCon the last time, which I don't even know when it was, you guys. I've lost 2 years of my life. It was the last one that we were all at.
2019. I think it was 2019.
Thank you.
Yeah, 2019.
Right. So we went to a session, and I'm not sure if everybody got to do this because we always have breakout sessions, so we're not always at the same one. But this information came from one of our fellow stagers who had gotten all of this great information about what does a millennial mindset look like, because they're the biggest pool of buyers that we're trying to appeal to. How do we define them, if you will? So they are very Pinterest and Instagram driven. They're very, very tech savvy. They're not necessarily hands-on to do projects. Okay, so when we're talking about people who say, oh, the kids will just come in and they can do it themselves, they don't really have the skill set to do it. Most of them don't. The ones that do are few and far between, and they will YouTube it, which I find is awesome, right? Like, who wouldn't have loved YouTube, 25, 30 years ago when we were moving into our houses? That it would have been awesome to have all of this resource. But they are super tech savvy, which is, it's a good thing. And that's the way they function. And again, it goes back to the photos and why it's so important that everything looks great online, because that's where they live, is in the online world. They're super loyal. This is the thing. They're loyal and appreciate authenticity. When they connect to a realtor they like, they're going to stay with them. that's the difference. Like, it's such an interesting dynamic to see that, where other people just jump all over the place and just work with whoever. They really do appreciate authenticity. And I have to say, one of the comments I got from a millennial during one of my classes was, she said, we don't like it when they do virtual photographs, virtual staging in photographs, because it's so fake. We want it to be authentic. We want to walk into the house and see that. So when they make it look like something beautiful out of a magazine, and then you walk into an empty house with scuffed up floors, they're extremely annoyed. And that's another thing to share. Let the seller and your agents know that. It's not to say that it's all bad and that it shouldn't happen. It's just something that comes up for people, because that's one of the traits that they hold. They seek smart homes, energy efficiency. So if someone says to you, we have to switch out our washer and dryer, should we get energy efficient? Yeah, get those things that will jazz them up, because if that's your target market, that's the way to go. They're always going to rely on assistance from their parents. Usually parents are going through the house and looking with them. They don't have the money for renovations. As I said, they're usually strapped with cash flow because of student debt, etc. They do prefer quality over price. So something to keep in mind here is that the majority of home sellers are baby boomers. Because remember, when we were looking at the statistics, that biggest group of buyers was millennials, and next came the boomers, and it was almost the same. It's like 37 and 32%. Funny enough, when we think about that, that means that when those boomers are downsizing, they're appealing to the millennials, right? So we can help share. The next slide I want to share with you is all of the things that they really appreciate. So those eco-friendly finishes, systems, appliances, all of that are really great for millennials. They appreciate tech and smart systems, right down to, I met with a guy who had put a plug-in on his garage door opener that allowed him to be able to open and close it with his cell phone. He didn't have to change the whole opener. It was just like an add-on. And I'm like, people are gonna love that. Whether it's the millennials, which they'll love it because they want everything to happen through their phone. I mean, we're now controlling our televisions through our cell phones, right? It's crazy. So the more that we can suggest that to people, if they are going to make changes, then keep these things in mind. The craziest part here, this next statement, is that millennials see a house that's over 5 years old as dated. And over 10 years old as old and tired. I was like, okay, so I think of a house from the 50s as maybe old and tired. Like, it's just a really different mentality. And again, it has everything to do with expectations. The way people view the world today through the lens of the camera, through the visuals of all of these apps that we're all obsessed with, right? They're always looking for home offices because they were running the trend of working from home anyway, but now it's happening in every group, right? With the pandemic, everybody's looking for home offices, and entertaining spaces are very important to them. They prefer hardwood and stone flooring to carpet. So when we're talking about updating carpet, talk to them about even getting a hardwood look. So vinyl plank, fantastic. It's super durable. It looks fantastic. The products today are awesome. I mean, we've even done some of our chapter meetings at flooring companies, and that's a great resource for us, right? So then we can speak to all of this, like just update with that kind of flooring. It's going to be less expensive than a true hardwood, and they're going to love it. It'll really help to appeal to that group, especially if people have to get rid of like stained, gross carpet. Like, it's got to go. Updated bathrooms, even if they just change out the vanity, so it's the new height, lighting, and faucet, it can change everything about a bathroom, really. And they prefer minimal yard maintenance because they're just not hands-on, right? Like, they'd rather be either hanging out with their friends because they prefer experiences over yard work, if that makes sense. They'd much rather be doing fun stuff. Okay, let me just make sure that I covered all of that. Okay. So staging and photography, I wanted to go back. I know that not everybody was able to join us for the 2020 photography panel that the RISA group did. It was such an awesome meeting. And here are some of the highlights that I wanted to point out that I think is good to speak to with realtors. When we talked to those photographers, it was so great to be like, all right, so what do you think when this happens? It was so good to get their perspective. They felt that every home, no matter the price point, benefited from staging before the photos. Like, hello, decluttering. So the next thing was like, the biggest impact on their pictures when they went in to take them was the clutter everywhere. Even if we'd had a staging consult where we talked only about clutter, it would have made their pictures that much better. It's hard for them to go in, they're getting paid to do a job, and they know it could look a lot better than it does. So it's nice to get that perspective from them. Tight timelines were just a negative impact on the readiness of a home. So when realtors ask about, so when should we stage? What does the process look like? It should always be at the beginning. Once a staging consult is done, then you can determine with the seller, how long do they think it will take to get prepared? Then the photos can be done, right? Like, so let's ease the stress on everybody by putting one foot in front of the other. So we're helping them to see this is where we're having a success rate, is when this happens, they are able to do all the things that we recommend, and then they're ready for pictures like that. It's awesome. And that's huge. Staging at the onset is always better for that days on market. There's no lost time. So RISA has these graphics, and they're very old, so I didn't put them in today because I think we have new ones that are coming for the last couple of years. But you know, they did a survey of all the stagers in the country and said, what happened when people insisted that they go out on the market without staging? How many days were they on the market? Then when they decided to do the staging because they weren't selling, how long did that take? And then what happened when the homeowner was willing to stage at the beginning, like we recommended? It was ridiculous. It was 132 days on the market when they wanted to just throw it out there without staging first. It was 18 days on market when they prepared the house and were ready to go. We're talking a difference of 5 months. When you add that up, it was 4.5. You bump that up, and RISA takes it a step further to educate the realtors to say, think about that. 4.5 to 5 months of someone being on the market, paying their mortgage, all of the additional costs. Think about what that's costing them down the line instead of selling within the first month. So there's all of that information that we can put out there. And once that, I think they're working on the program. Once that comes through, I'm happy to share with everybody those graphics so that you can share that, because I think it's important that they see the difference in what happens before. When you're able to put it out on the market at the beginning. The tight timelines, the consults can help determine. And then the other thing that I wanted to cover here, let me just go on to the next slide. This was the continuation of the key points of that panel. They said the easiest homes to shoot were vacant. Staged homes, right? So they're dreamy. Everything looks perfect because we've made it look perfect. And we walk out and they can come get the pictures. It's great. The hardest things for them to shoot are empty boxes, empty rooms, where if there's 2 or 3 bedrooms that all have the same color, same carpet, how do you even know it's a different room on the listing? It doesn't make any sense to people. It's really tough to share like the visual story of a house when it's like that. And unstaged occupied bedrooms. So think about those kids' rooms, you guys, with the tapestries on the walls, the Christmas lights everywhere, the medals for winning all of these things, the trophies, we can talk about how distracting all of that can be, and why it's good for us to go in and deliver the bad news so they don't have to do that. People have high expectations, right? Like when we talk about the Airbnb, like the photographers were like, yeah, it's kind of wild. We've been doing these Airbnb photo shoots and they have to be perfect. We can't have that like a super wide angle that makes things look bigger than what they are. Those aren't good anyway. But if they're like that in an Airbnb and people walk in there and they're like, holy hell, we can't stay here for a week with 5 of us in this teeny tiny place. They feel like they've been duped in the pictures, right? They are going to give such a bad review, and your reviews are everything in the Airbnb world. And what's interesting is that although it doesn't apply to real estate directly, our mentality as a people, as we get into Airbnb and more people are signing on and wanting these perfect pictures, it will impact how people see listings online. And that's really a good thing to continue sharing with the agents. This is so much information for them. They'll be like, but it matters. And we know how it matters because our statistics show it every time. It proves it when we look at all of our statistics. Okay, so I'm gonna hop into, how to market ourselves. Who are you and what are you offering? So let's communicate value. This goes back to like all the other things that we've already talked about are things that you can talk to agents about and show your value. But these are going to be some more to share. One of the big slides in the class that we share is showing a list of the difference between a hobbyist and a professional stager. And I think that's really important. I am going to preface this by telling you that I did a class during COVID where I had a real estate agent come to me after the class and say, I've been working with a few different women who are not professional stagers. I know that now after the class, and I think they should all come and take your class. Can they do that? Like, it was pretty telling. So there are people that love design. We all know that. We all love design. But we're going to talk to the real estate agents about what does it mean when you're a professional? So number one, we're educated. And whether that's that you had a formal training and you have a certification, that's wonderful, share that. If you've been in business for a really long time, you have your experience to stand behind. You have your stories that you can share. You understand the industry and what's going on because you're tapped in with your agents. The other thing about education, I knew I made a note about this. The other thing about education is that you may have had initial training, but if you come to this meeting every month, you're getting educated. Every month, you're learning something new that you bring to the table to help your clients and the real estate agent. So for anyone who feels like they may not have the right credentials, we have the credentials, right? Like, so we are bringing a whole different layer to the table. And all of us come to these meetings every month because we do want to know what's going on. We do want to keep our hand on the pulse of the industry. And that's why we're part of RESA. That's the other thing that I would say. Make sure you're telling people, I am part of the most influential real estate association in the country and the world, quite frankly. We have people that are members from all over the world. That's important for them to know. You are invested. You're invested in the way that you're invested in the real estate local boards. We're invested in ourselves for education here as well. If you're a RESA Pro, make sure you tell people that, because if you're a RESA Pro, you're adhering to a code of ethics, just the way the realtors are. You're speaking their language. They have a code of ethics. They understand we have one. part of that code of ethics as a RISA Pro is that you're only going to use photos of your own work on your website. These are all really great things that you can note to real estate agents. You know, if you want to know what's for real, if you want to go on and interview, let's say 3 stagers, you're going onto my site. I'm a RISA Pro. Every photo you see on there is my work. It's not a stock photo that you're seeing. All of that is really great. You can put that out there, and then you're showing your value in it, right? Your experience can be, maybe you haven't been in business all that long. Maybe you've only done a few consultations, but in those consultations, you had an experience with someone. You saw an issue, you helped them resolve it. You can share that with an agent, right? So here's my example. I walked into a house last week. I walked into the kitchen and the door on the oven was completely gone. And there was a little mini oven stuffed inside where the homeowner was storing it because he didn't have enough room on the counter for it when he wasn't cooking.
That's awful.
It was crazy, right? I mean, these are the things that we see. But he said to me, oh, I've been trying to get an oven for weeks and Home Depot just keeps pushing me off. I cannot get a product. And I said, you know what? I have a rep at a local appliance place. Let me reach out to her and I'll find out if there's even a possibility of you getting something. He said, okay. He didn't think I'd get anywhere with it, but my rep responded to me in less than 15 minutes with 3 options for him and said, if you order by 6:30 tonight, he'll have it in 2 days.
Yay.
Right? There's our value all day long. These are the things that, does the realtor really want to be dealing with the stove? No. We can deal with all of those little things at the onset to help them be prepared for when that realtor shows up with the photographer for the pictures. Boom, we've got it done. And then you're sending messages back and forth, including your realtor to say, hey, we've done it. Here it is. It's on its way. And to him, I was like, yay, you actually get to cook a meal in the oven instead of having like this pseudo setup. So I think that when you've got a few examples like that, that goes to your experience as much as saying, I've been in business 15 years. Okay, so there's different ways of promoting yourself without feeling like you have to have more than that. Okay, so we can now define the target market. We looked at that a little bit. I always ask the realtors or the homeowner. So I know you've been talking about, I can tell in a neighborhood, is this going to be young families you're expecting to move in here? That kind of thing. So you're thinking about target market and you're talking target market. You have statistics. We are all collecting them for ourselves throughout the year. At least I hope we are. And I don't know if we'll have time to go over that today, but maybe that can be at a different time that we can talk about how that works. But we have our local statistics. Thank you all so much. Whoever sent in their stats last year in December, it was so helpful. It really was wonderful to pull those numbers together. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but our days on market in the New England area were the same as the overall for RISA National, 9 days on market. It was great. So we're right on par with what's going on across the country. I think that's fantastic. Those are things to talk about with the agents. We've got statistics. We're selling for this much more. We were getting this much more over ask. That's going to be more important as we go into the other, like a buyer's market, because now they're just like, the houses are going to sell anyway, and they're selling for over. We all have that kind of issue, but the statistics will still be as impactful, and if not more, when we have like tons of houses on the market and we're saying we're selling faster than all of this, which is great. And then obviously our before and after examples. Julie was saying she has a bunch in her program, which is awesome. I think that's really important. the realtors love that. You know, you're going to keep their interest. They love to look at before and after photos, but that's not everything. You want to talk to them about maybe you, in a couple of your before and afters, was there an issue that you had in that before photo that you recommend, or you recommended something that made such an impact on the other end? Those are the things you want to think about as we're talking to the realtors, so that they know we have more consistency. We've got, that's not the word I want. We just offer more. If that word is not coming to me, I think we all, maybe I'm going to speak for myself here. I think I have COVID brain. There are times when I just cannot find my words. I don't know what's happening to me. I'm like, what the hell? I'll think of it the minute we sign off this call. It's gonna drive me crazy. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going here. All right. So when we talk about home staging, I want to, these next few slides are going to be all about how does staging benefit all parties involved, right? When we're looking at the buyers, we know that in the statistics from NAR, there are numbers that say, you know, and I don't remember it, it's terrible. It's probably 65 to 70% of buyers say it's easier for them to visualize themselves in a home that's been staged. That's why it's important. You can go in and get that information, and I would pull information from NAR, because the real estate agents see that as fact in their own industry. It's not just us saying, oh, it's our numbers and we're gonna push this at you. We're saying, yeah, this makes sense. And oh, by the way, look at our statistics, because that's why that happens. You know, you can connect the two for them, which I think is really good. People want to move in and start living right away. So when they're provided as a move-in ready home, they can do that, and they're willing to pay the premium to get there. That goes back to making sure that a seller knows that they can maintain, if not increase, their equity by preparing the home properly for the market. Then secondly, the sellers, what's in it for them, right? Like, this is a lot of work for them. We're asking them to do a lot to get their house ready for the market in some cases. But having a plan to prepare the home for their showings and any additional showings and things like that reduces the stress for everybody. Think about that example of the garage or the basement full of crap. Just that example alone is enough to be like, take that weight off you. You don't want to have to be dealing with these issues at the 19th hour. When you pack half your house before you list it, you're not panicking when it goes under agreement in 3 hours because you know you're prepared to do the next half of the house packing, you know, that kind of stuff. So you can share that with the homeowners and the realtors. This also helps a seller to feel like they're in control of the process. We're allowing them to be proactive. We're educating them on the reasons why they want to do certain things, and then they can feel like they're doing the right thing. They're spending the money in the right places. How many times have we heard that? They're like, I don't know where to put the money. We want to be able to get all the money back from the house. What should we do? We're taking care of helping them determine all of that as well. Okay, here's our last slide. I know I've been rambling, and then we'll go into some questions and discussion after. So what's in it for them? Let's really get into that part. Number 5, they are going to build a strong brand when they start using staging and photography consistently. Because we know when people go to find a real estate agent, they're Googling them, right? You know, like in the community pages, people will say, who should I hire for my realtor? And 1,000 names will be thrown on the thread, right? They're going to choose people and they're going to look them up. What do their listings look like? People are savvy today. We have got so many more resources online than we ever did before. So they are going to make judgments about the agents based on what their photos look like. whether or not they have an online presence, whether or not they have a website. There's all of these things, it's all online, right? So when you can have these great photos for every single listing, that becomes your brand. And they're also building statistics because, hello, our statistics are their statistics. So let them know that over time, as they're selling faster because they're using staging and photography, excuse me, their statistics will get better. And that can immediately go into their marketing and go into their listing presentation. Why wouldn't they want it to? Number 4, and this kind of touches on the last slide, is the whole reduce stress in the client relationship. A lot of the agents I work with are like, we're so happy to just tell people that you'll tell them what to do when it comes to the 10 deer heads that are all at eye level staring at us when we walk in the door. They don't want to have to say anything about it. They rely on us to go in and just deal with it. And we're happy to, because that's part of the deal. And it's easy for us to say, we're going to recommend this because of that. And that's all stuff that you can talk to the realtors about too. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid to ask someone about how many cats they have, or talk to them about how to clean the cat box while they're on the market. Like, this is part of what we do. We get into the nitty-gritty with people. Number 3, and this is really important because it kind of blew me away. There were a couple slides that came into our class probably 2 or 3 years ago that basically were talking about how realtors were getting sued because they were not educating their selling clients on the value of home staging. Can you imagine that? We are such a litigious society. Why would a realtor want to give one more reason that someone could sue them after the fact? If they suggest staging, they want to talk about it, they've educated the homeowner about it, and they don't want to do it, sometimes they'll have them sign a form to say, yeah, I'm out. I don't want to do staging, and they're protecting themselves that way. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. I think that's a great thing for realtors to come into the classes. They get a designation from RISA when they do, so they can prove that they know what they're talking about when they are talking with sellers, to avoid those breach of duty claims from other people. I find that fascinating. As a side note, I would never sue someone over that, but it is what it is. Number 2 is they will get more listings. That's the whole point. What are the pain points for a real estate agent who's listing all the time? They need more listings. And when they provide staging and photography and progressive services, they get it. And we can all say to them, I say it in every single class, the majority of clients I meet with tell me they hired their realtor because I was part of the process. People know what a stager is. They know what the value of staging is in their home. They may not completely get it, but they all watch HGTV, don't they? Right? How many times do you talk to people like, oh, you must have a really fun job, and I watch HGTV all the time. They get it. And oftentimes when we go in and we're talking to people who are super enthusiastic for us to come, that could have been the tipping point for them to hire that realtor. So if they're looking for that secret sauce, the thing that's going to push it over the edge for them to get the listing, they should really think about offering staging and photography, because it's not right to ask a homeowner to go through the whole process of staging a home and then take photos with a cell phone. Mm-hmm. That's part of what we talk about in the class too. If we're asking them to kill themselves to get this house to look picture perfect, you do not walk in with a cell phone. That's like a kick in the teeth, right? Like, that's not okay. It has to be professional. And that's the whole point. We're trying to make these professional, perfect photographs. And we're asking them to turn themselves inside out to make it happen. And they will. They get on board all the time, right? So they see that process. And when that all happens and they sell quick, then the real estate agent is like, wahoo, they're happy. And now they're referring all their friends and family to me. It's more than just that transaction. We're trying to help them keep the ball rolling, right? The number one thing here, and what really sings to them, they always want top commissions, and people are constantly trying to talk them down, trying to negotiate, like, I don't want to give you all my money. Think about the people who go for sale by owner. They don't want to pay any commission, and they're willing to put themselves like hanging out in the breeze legally in these processes. I think it's insane, but they don't want to have to pay a commission. To me, I say to the people in my classes all the time, if you are offering progressive services, staging, photography, pre-inspection, pre-appraisal, any of that, you have every right in the world to expect top commissions because your peers are not doing it. This is a way that you can stand out among people, even within your own office or within the local industry. If you're trying to gain, access into neighborhoods in a certain area, keep it going. And I'm going to leave you with this note that I found super interesting. I was networking with a bunch of real estate agents in the Lakes region. And that was, pre-COVID, wah, wah. It was a while ago. But we were having a conversation about different neighborhoods, and these, they were all these young, excited real estate agents. And they said, it's kind of weird. Like, I got this listing over in this neighborhood, and I got a call from a real estate agent who's been in the business for like 40 years. And he told me to get out of his neighborhood. That I had no right to go in there. I burst out laughing because, first of all, who knows that? But secondly, I said, this is the thing, because they're like, we've done it the same way for the last 40 years. We don't have to change a thing. And you're the new progressive agent coming in and offering more. The consumer wants a value add. What is it going to be? And if you're offering it, you're going to get the listings out from under them every single time. And funny enough, it's been happening. I see it up here. Robin, you see it too, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
yes.
I call them the dinosaurs. They are pissed.
We won't mention any names, but we know exactly who they are.
But who would imagine that they would come out and start harassing these young agents?
Yeah.
Unacceptable at best, right? Mm-hmm. But the whole point of it is, like, if you're staying in 1990 and pretending like the internet doesn't matter and that pictures and staging doesn't matter, then you are going to lose listing after listing after listing. It doesn't matter that you have 100 signs out there. We can Google you, right? We can figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so that's my last note. I don't mean to be like a rah, 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 but I just found that fascinating. And it was just such a sign of the times, and that these agents can come up with these great ways to get the interest of real estate agents and local homeowners, just by offering a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So anyway, are there any questions? I know I covered a ton of information.
I just want to say thank you, Amy. This was the most wonderful class.
Oh, thank you.
On so many issues. It's wonderful. We can all learn every day. It doesn't matter how long you've been in the business. It's awesome.
It's so true. I do every month in these groups. I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
So for any of you who can make it to RisaCon this year, it's like, brain explosion when you can go and hit all of the different classes and things like that. It's really wonderful. And that, when you think about that, it's an investment in yourself, and you're also gaining a ton of information to run back and share with your agents. This is all how we're bringing value to them all the time. So just keep that in mind.
Amy, do you know if RisaCon will be Zooming their meeting this year?
It's live. As far as I know, they're trying to line up the speakers right now, but they're having it in Vegas in July.
Okay, so yeah, I bet they will do like on virtual, right? Along with in person.
I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do that, Deb. They may be able to like record the classes maybe and then offer them after. I'm not sure if they're going to try to do it live because they have so many different rooms that
Yeah,
they have ongoing classes in each place.
okay.
But yeah, that's always just an overload, but a great overload. And you get to network and chat about all this stuff and get different ideas as well. It's just a really great experience. Anybody else? Any thoughts? Any questions you have?
Just a big thank you, Amy. You can tell you're passionate about what you do.
Absolutely.
No wonder they love coming to listen to you. Thank you so much for this.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it was
Great
really
class,
good.
Amy Parker.
Thank you so much. I hope you were able to get a few nuggets anyway. It's hard when you do any kind of class, you try to take away a few things that can be helpful.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Excellent. Well, thank you,
Thank you.
Amy. Are there any final thoughts on today's presentation before we get into our little group chat?
I have a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
From a marketing standpoint. So I know a lender. She's big. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Buffini and Company. You guys know them at all?
Mhm.
So I think it's Bill Buffini. I forget his name. I got his book over here, but he's huge in the real estate community. And this lender shared an idea with me for my financial services business. And I don't know if you guys are allowed to do this or not, but what she does is she goes around and she like gathers she goes with the real estate agent, right? Because she's trying to develop real connections with real estate agents as well. And she goes around to home and she'll drop off stuff like, for 4th of July, she'll drop off, stuff for s'mores. And then they take pictures at the home as where they're dropping them off, where they did a deal together, right? She'll do that to maintain that relationship with the real estate agent as well as the homeowner as well, in case they need to refinance in the future or whatever, right? I didn't know if you guys could go to homes and take pictures with the real estate agent and post things on social media that says, hey, we sold this home together, this amount over asking. Is that like not kosher to do or whatever if you did something like that?
I don't think that it's not kosher. It's whether or not we can wrangle the realtor
Right.
long enough to do that. Is that
Yeah.
what you're going to say, Lori?
Yes, exactly. Like it's tough enough to try to get them to get on the phone with you. They only want to talk to you when they have something they need from you.
Mhm.
The
Cool,
problem I
cool.
have is the top realtors that I use, they want to keep me as their little secret, and they try not to mention my name anywhere, let anybody know they're using me. So that's a big problem that I have.
That's true. They don't want to share us.
No, they
And we
don't.
want them to share us.
Right.
Right.
Keep us that busy if they don't want to share us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a good point. That was something that I forgot to put in the program, but something that I do note in the class is that real estate agents should be connected to 2 or 3 of us that they're comfortable to work with, so that if one of us is on vacation or just not available, because when we're busy, we can be booked up to 2 weeks in advance, right? If they need people sooner, then there's other people they can reach out to. And that's a good thing to offer up and suggest, because then you're showing, like, I want you to still be able to meet your timelines. They're still going to keep coming back to us because they know we care about what's going on in their business when we say something like that. So it's just another way to promote it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good thought.
So I was in charge of today's inspiration, and I found something that I thought was really interesting and tied in with what Amy was doing. And it says, hard work is about risk. It begins when you deal with the things that you'd rather not deal with. Fear of failure, fear of standing out, fear of rejection. Hard work is about training yourself to leap over this barrier, drive through the other barrier. And after you've done that, to do it again the next day. And I just thought that's
love that.
exactly what we're
love
talking
that.
about. It's like putting
Yeah.
ourselves out there, you know,
Yeah.
to do it. And what are we afraid of? The worst that can happen is that someone says no.
Right.
Like, okay, so
Right.
go on again, you know,
Yeah.
but we all hate that rejection part. So yeah.
Right.
Well, I just want to make one comment here is I haven't taught a staging class for 2 years. And I taught one last week and I had about 50 attendees. And I had one call from a realtor that attended and asked me to do a consultation, which I did yesterday. She has another one that's going to be coming on the market at the end of the month, and she'll be calling me for that. So I do want to say that, getting the certification to teach this course and getting out there and teaching it is a good way to get more realtors on board. Because I had the ability to present myself to 50 realtors that are relatively new or seasoned to the industry and learning and wanted to be there to learn more about staging. And I'm hoping that I get a few more callbacks from those agents. So it's a proven way to get more clients, just saying, like Amy said already, but I just want to tell you that. And the best way to do that is you just sign up for RISA Pro and they send you this tutorial that you go through to get the certification to teach the class. They send you the material to teach. And so it's not rocket science, and, your first one's always the most difficult, but then once you do it, you get used to it and it can be fun. So I want you guys to think about that.
Do they get continuing ed
Yeah.
credits or something? They do? Okay.
They get 3 credits.
Not in Massachusetts.
Oh, yes, you're right. I take that back.
Massachusetts is horrible.
It's only in New Hampshire.
Right.
I don't know about Rhode Island.
Do you
I don't-
have to generate the class? Like, do you have to make it yourself or is it already made and you show up?
So what happened with me is that I had Pinnacle Mortgage approach me and say that they would like me to do a presentation so that they can bring in their realtors that they work with and provide a education for them. So they approached me and said, would I consider teaching a class because I had done it for them prior to COVID. Now, Amy, you've put together your class as being the sponsor, correct?
Yeah, I think what Lynn's asking though is, does RISA give you the PowerPoint? Is that what you were asking?
No, I mean, just the opportunity, let's say, just, do I have to generate my class? Like, do I need to go somewhere?
What you could do is you could reach out to mortgage companies or title companies and say, hey, or even these little boutique real estate offices that have, 10 to 15 associates. You could say, hey, I teach this CEU course, Stage to Sell. Would you want me to come in and do a presentation or do the class for your associates?
Okay.
And then, some of them be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Come on in, and then.
I've done it both. Oh, sorry, Debbie. I thought.
Go ahead.
I've done it both ways, like you. I've done it, had someone sponsor it, or you can go out and do it on your own, like Amy does. She advertises, to her boards of realtors and does her own courses, or maybe she gets them underwritten by a sponsor. So it's however you want it. You can take the show on the road if you want, Lynn, and just call up your agents that and say, do you want to offer it in-house? I've done that also. So it's nice when you can get a sponsor to underwrite the class for you and house the class. We've done them. We did one at FW Web a couple of years ago. They have a big training room and they were happy to have people coming through the showroom and then sitting in the class. So finding a space to give it is part of the challenge, because people love this class. It's a fun 3 credit opportunity. So you can get upwards of, I don't know, I've had 30, 40, 50 people in rooms, it's a lot of paperwork afterwards, but too much paperwork. But yeah, so be creative. I mean, if you have a space that you can get into, you could offer it, ask somebody to supply the coffee and donuts and or whatever. And so it can be whatever you want it to be. But also I thought she meant the same thing that you thought, Amy, about personalizing or adding information. They give you a template. So if you're, for any of you that are considering teaching it, which we must follow in terms of covering all of that content and showing all of those slides, but you can add in your own work. So you can show photos of your own work. You can't make it, the Amy show or the Pam show, but you can substitute in a lot of the visuals that they have with your own work. And I always add a little extra info about color because I happen to like that. I always add my personal statistics in the statistics section. So you can kind of beef it up a little. You just can't take away from it and or delete things that you don't want to teach. But it's a really great marketing opportunity. It really is.
And just to let you know, when you do teach a class that's sponsored by a mortgage company or somebody, you have to give RISA headquarters a 30-day notice that you're doing that. So I had my hand slapped about that because I didn't meet the 30-day timeline, but so just keep that in mind. But I mean, once you get certified, you'll know all the rules. So there you go.
Well,
and
the reason,
Lynn, I can help you out. Yeah, I can help you figure this out if you want to go get your certification.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you so much, Deb.
Yeah, I just want to make a side note too that normally you'll see a couple of vendors come in together. So usually there's a mortgage and title company that work together all the time anyway, and they'll cover the costs of things, right? So that's one thing that I would do is if you've got a mortgage person, you can say, hey, if there's a title person, and then they get time to chat with the group. Everybody wants to get in front of these agents, so they're happy to sponsor. That's part of the deal. The other thing is kind of the policy stuff behind what RISA is doing. They like to have a 30-day heads up on when we're doing classes, because there will be agents in New Hampshire that reach out to RISA National to say, where can I do a class to get the 3 credits? So then they can turn around and say, oh, Deb's got a class next month. You can sign up here. So they can send those flyers out. That's what that's for, because they do get a lot of requests that way. So that's another way to be part of it, is being an approved instructor.
Yep. The one that I just did, Pinnacle had a beautiful luncheon. And then after my break, they were serving alcohol. It was like, wow, this is crazy. I needed to talk fast after they were serving the alcohol, I'll tell you that.
I was going to say, did they all start napping by the end?
Oh, I know. It was like, I'm like, oh my God, they're serving alcohol. I better get this going, No, but it was quite the event. All right. Well, listen, you've brought us right up to the top of the hour, Amy. What a fantastic presentation. And we've all really taken away so many points to include in all of our presentations to our clients, and we really appreciate you taking the time to put this all together for us, because it's no easy task, that's for sure.
Thank you very much.
And so before everybody goes, we're going to be meeting again next month. Let's see, what's next month? April. And we're going to be doing headshots, aren't we? Is that the
Yep.
All right.
Wasn't that in May?
No, no, in May, no, in April.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we're in March. I keep forgetting we're in March because it came so quickly. But so the month of April, we're going to be trying to do headshots at a location. and it's going to be in person. I don't know, how do you people feel about meeting in person?
Sure. No problem.
Is everyone okay with that? Anybody opposed? I know it's hard logistically to get everybody together in one location, but we'll be putting out some information on that as soon as possible.